What's going on, everybody? Thank you all for joining me today. If you haven't already, please make sure you hit the like button because that is the most important thing you can do for me on this channel. What it does is that it helps to make sure that those who are subscribed to the channel will indeed get the notifications, and it also helps to push this video through the YouTube algorithm. Secondly, if you're new to the channel or maybe you've been ghost watching this channel for quite some time now, please do me a favor and yourself a favor and hit that subscribe button as well as the bell notification next to the subscribe button so you could be notified whenever I release a new video. And lastly, please make sure you share this video out on your social media platforms to your family and friends to inform them of this news and information. And that does also give me a slight boost in the YouTube algorithm as well also. And with the introduction out of the way, let's now get into today's news. And today we are headed over to MSNBC Studios because they went over a poll that was recently released in which it was articulated, we'll say, right? It shows that independent voters actually find Joe Biden to be a greater threat to democracy than Donald Trump. Yes, you heard me correctly. But that isn't really a shocker to me as much as it was a shocker to the NBC News pundits, which we'll get into their reaction in just a moment. And the reason that it's not shocking to me is because it wasn't that long ago, maybe about a little bit over maybe a month and a half ago, when RFK Jr. was being interviewed on CNN, and he stated the exact same thing. He felt that Joe Biden is a greater threat to democracy than Donald Trump. And the CNN hosts were shocked and they were in awe and they couldn't believe it. And then they kind of just moved on from there. But then when RFK Jr. went on Fox News, they asked him the same question and they asked him to elaborate. He actually gave a very good response as to why he felt that way. And with that being said, it's not shocking to me that an independent candidate has these feelings and you see independent voters share the same sentiment as well. So what I want to do now, before we go even further into this discussion, is that I want to take a moment to play, we'll say, the reaction of the MSNBC News analysts concerning this information surrounding the polling of independents saying that Joe Biden is a greater threat to democracy than Donald Trump is. So let's get into that right now.
In this polling was more independents said that they worry about President Biden weakening democracy than Trump, 53% to 42%. What do you make of this?
I find it shocking, honestly. I can't, make sense of that number. I wish I could. I wish I could have some really great insight to it. But I don't know if it's an outlier or not because the other numbers with independents and Biden are going in the right direction. So that may be it. But also, just one thing I wanted to add on to what Basil said. This trial's not on TV. You guys do a great job reporting what's happening. But if there aren't those images coming out of the courthouse, people feel like they know this story. We've heard about it for a long time. So it doesn't surprise me that they're not interested.
Well, thank you both so much for being here, Basil Smith.
You see, now, once again, it's not really shocking at all. Because when you're talking about independence, you're talking about people who have no dying allegiance to any one particular political party. So they're seeing things a little bit more clearly than those who are party loyalists do. And they're seeing, just like I've seen, and those of you who are subscribed to this channel have seen, as we've talked about over and over again, they see the foolishness of the Democratic Party, or the Democrat Party, I should say. I always say Democratic, the Democrat Party. They see the foolishness of the DNC and the Democrat Party, right? They see how they attempted to remove Trump from off the ballot in some states like Illinois and Maine. I believe it was 6 days prior to the primaries, removing him from the ballot in an attempt to not even allow the citizens of their state the opportunity to make their pick for who they want to see run for president on the ticket. Now, the Supreme Court overturned those rulings, but the fact that they even went as far as to do such a thing is completely ridiculous. When you go to Chicago, we all were seeing how in Chicago, Brandon Johnson and his team, Brandon Johnson, who is the emperor of the People's Republic of Chicago, how his administration made it more difficult for American citizens of Chicago to enter into a city council meeting than it is for illegal immigrants to cross the border. by putting in a host of measures, which also requiring you needing an ID before you can come into a city council meeting, while at the same time, the very people from the same party tell you that it's racist to require for me to have an ID to vote. So it's racist to say I need an ID to vote, but it's not racist to require an ID for the citizens to get into a city council meeting. How do you make that make sense? And there are a host of other examples that I can go into concerning Chicago right now, but I don't want to go down that rabbit hole because I discuss Chicago so much on this channel. So we don't have to get into all that right now. But we're seeing this over and over and over again, especially as it pertains to the lawfare that's going on towards Donald Trump by way of Joe Biden. In my opinion, I believe, I assume, allegedly. That's just what I think and what I believe, but it's very obvious and it's very apparent when you just do a little bit of digging and a little bit of reading, and you see the degree to which Biden and his people seem to have their hands tied up into all of these indictments that have been handed down towards Donald Trump, in an attempt to remove him from the equation, as opposed to just going up against him fairly and squarely and seeing if they can beat him. But also concerning that and going back to these trials that he has on his hands, I want to go back into the article that I had on the screen earlier. Let me pull this up for you right now. And as usual, the link to this article and the video that you just watched will be in the description box below. So you can read this article for yourself and watch the video for yourself, minus my commentary if you so choose. And I always suggest that you do that, right? But I want to get into this right here. It reads as such: the recent polls also found a general disinterest among the public in Trump's Manhattan hush money trial, where he's facing more than 30 felony counts. He pled not guilty against charges he falsified business records to cover up an alleged affair. The PBS survey found that 50% are not following the trial much or at all, while 45% said they are paying at least some attention, a little bit of attention. Well, why is that? Because overall, the general population, at least as it pertains to independents, right? Those of us who aren't tied politically to any one political party, you're seeing this and you're going, okay, at best, what? Trump slept with a porn star and paid her off to just simply go away? What's the issue here? What's the real problem here? You see, when you simplify things like that, people try to overcomplicate things. These political analysts, political analysts, right? These political pundits, right? Especially those particularly on the Democrat side, they try to overanalyze these things and make them so much more difficult than what it actually is to understand. But when you break it down in a more simplified fashion, he slept with a porn star, allegedly, and paid her to go away. What's the problem? You see, it's not resonating with people that it's an issue because it's not an issue. And they can see that as foolishness. Therefore, once again, as well, the people are looking at this, independents at least, and they're saying, okay, wait a minute. It's looking like the guys who cry wolf the most about Trump being a threat to democracy are actually the ones themselves who are the biggest threat to democracy. And this understanding is going to become a huge threat to Biden's campaign as it pertains to him running for re-election. It's going to pose a huge threat to him in between his issues with black voters, in between his issues now with the young voters as it pertains to his handling of the war in the Middle East, that will say his issue with independent voters concerning how independent voters really just don't believe him. And then you have the RFK Jr. issue and the Cornel West issue. These are both issues that are going to impact Biden a lot more than it'll impact Donald Trump, if those two impact him at all, which most likely they weren't. Biden has a lot on his plate to overcome. And I'm finding it hard to see how Biden could really overcome it unless, as I always say, he brings back that 2020 magic. And we all know what that 2020 magic is. That 2020 magic where one guy is winning the election and you go to sleep thinking to yourself, yeah, looks like that guy pretty much has it in the bag. And then when you wake up in the morning, the other guy wins by a landslide. Unless Biden's going to pull off some of that 2020 magic again, it's really hard to see him winning. But I guess to be continued, right? To be continued. And with all that being said, that does it for today's news. So thank you all for joining me today. Hit the like button on your way out. Subscribe to the channel if you're new to the channel. Share this video out on your social media platforms. Follow me on Telegram at TD Media Group. The link to my Telegram will be in the description box below. And have a great afternoon and a safe afternoon. Peace.